This is our first ever Virtual Insight Summit open mic session. And as far as I know, the first ever open mic session that we've seen at a conference like this. We have an incredible lineup of speakers waiting in the wings to share a variety of topics with you. Before I pop it over to them, I want to give a little bit of backstory on why we decided to include this in the summit. So I can't really take credit because it wasn't fully my idea. We've been doing something at Zappi for the past year, which we call Friday Roundup, where the entire company gets together every Friday. And at some point they started doing these lightning talks, which different people from the company came on for 5 minutes to talk to the whole company about something they're passionate about. And it's ranged everywhere from what people's actual day jobs are that maybe not everyone else at the company understands, to our VP of marketing, Emma, talked about banana importing, which was actually really fascinating. And as we were thinking about ways to create the summit this year and have it be a little bit new and different and cover a whole broad bandwidth of topics, this idea kept coming back of, well, if we can spend 45 minutes talking about 6 different things, maybe it won't be as intense as the studio that we just had on kind of one topic where we were really, really delving into it, but we can all learn from each other and share our passions. And maybe someone else's passion will either be something you've wanted to learn more about or something you already were passionate about. And then you can connect with them one-on-one and keep that learning going, both within the remainder of this session, this conference and beyond, and create some of those connections and have those conversations that might happen, you know, when you're waiting in line for food at a conference or when you're out at an after party, but are a little bit hard to have right now in a virtual world. So I'm really excited that you've decided to join us for this little experiment. And without further ado, our first guest is Frank Santiago. He's a lifer in the insights world and a friend to probably many of you. Frank is a global knowledge management manager, that's a mouthful, at Colgate-Palmolive, and is here today to share 5 minutes of his wisdom about all things knowledge management. Frank, step up to the mic and
good. Well, I guess it's good to be the first one because I kind of set the tone for everybody else. I've never done it this way, but nevertheless, I think to me, you know, when I think of knowledge management, the first thing I think about is, you know, in some companies, people just don't understand it, so they think it doesn't exist, right? And I think no matter where you are, who you are, big company, small company, what I've learned is, you know, you have to know your assets. Everybody has assets, everybody has learning, everybody has knowledge. So to me, the biggest thing is understand what you have and understand what you don't have. So that, I mean, I think that's one big point. Something else that I think is extremely important is knowledge management, just like the world has changed, right? It used to be just paper files. It used to be just ideas. It used to be just concepts. Now it's a bunch of stuff, right? It's audio, it's video, it's databases, it's data sources. I think you really need to understand what your arsenal of information is and say, look, some things are going to be together and some things are going to be separate. And I think if you can, you know, figure that out at a very high level, that really helps, you know, in general. And I think, you know, even at Colgate, we're going through that. I think the other thing is that sometimes these systems take a while to kind of get their return on investment. So knowledge management is something that doesn't always have the same value to, let's say, finance or corporate or GIT. But I think, you know, when you look at all the things that you can change and how people build knowledge, curate knowledge, and share knowledge, eventually your business will grow. I mean, I think, you know, I'm biased because at Colgate, we've been so successful and at the very least setting processes. And I've been able to work with some amazing people throughout my career. And some of the people I'm working with now on the next generation thoughts on knowledge management, I'm just excited about where we're going. The other thing is that as much as I know a lot about knowledge management, there's always somebody that knows something else that they can add value. So I think not always acting like you know it all, or at least keep an open mind about different things. And I think that's something that, you know, people don't always start a conversation with. So that's something that I think is big. You know, I think the last point, you know, for me is, you know, you're gonna make mistakes, right? Learn from them, move forward. Don't let these mistakes like eat at you or cost you a fortune. Just, you know, keep focused, stick to what you believe in, and get some of your big leaders in the organization behind you. And I think you'll do a pretty good job. So, Ariel, how am I on time? I think I just came under 5 minutes.
You have 2 more minutes.
then I think the other point is, it's not 2 minutes, is knowledge management is something that I think is also about reusing the past, reusing your knowledge. A lot of times we tell people, we want to stop research, and people are like, oh, you want to cut our budgets. No, we don't want to cut anybody's budget. We want to save that money for that foundational research, for that strategic research, instead of doing all of that retesting for information that you already have. And I think that that's something that a lot of organizations get, but some organizations still don't get it. They just want to overtest and overtest and overtest and not look at the past. And you got to look at the past to be able to move to the future. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Frank. That was awesome. Again, if you want to talk more with Frank about this, talk more about learning from mistakes and the power of failure, definitely reach out to him in the app. I know these are really short conversations that bring up a lot of big topics. Speaking of, next up, we have the one and only Emma Vazquez. She is the head of design at Zappi and has been for the past 5 years. So she's been the magician behind the scenes, creating so much of what you see when you visit our website or a Coral conference booth. She's also been my partner in crime in creating the colorful Virtual Insight Summit experience that you're all a part of right now. And she's very humble, and I know she's blushing right now and wanted me to say that, but I couldn't let her take the stage without putting that out there. But she's not here to talk to you about brand. In fact, she's here to dispel some major myths about pickles and maybe even teach you a thing or two that you can try at home. Emma.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay, I'm gonna time myself because I have a lot to tell you in 5 minutes. So I am talking to you indeed about pickles, but to begin with, I need to specify what I'm talking about. So gherkins, cucumbers, and pickles are not the same thing. So a gherkin is a small cucumber, okay? It's not clear according to the internet whether they're the same family or not. They're just not the same thing. We call pickles gherkins because we just normally consume them that way, but they're not always like that. A gherkin is basically a type of food that has been preserved, and that's what pickling is. It's a type of preservation, right? It's a process of preservation through anaerobic fermentation, which means without oxygen, often in brine, which is water and salt, or vinegar. We also use pickle to refer to a problem, but that doesn't make any sense because pickles are our friends. And in fact, there are theories that say that life on Earth started through fermentation, but I'm not going to go there because that's too much. So now that we know what pickling is, let's talk about why it's so fascinating. So pickling was created to preserve food, but that is not its only purpose. Food that has been pickled thanks to the fermentation becomes easier to digest for us, as there is a lot of pre-digestion done by the good bacteria created in that process, right? This applies to other types of food that are fermented. So let's think about coffee or bread. So we can't just eat raw coffee beans or wheat. We need to go through that process of fermentation for us to be able to digest them, right? Another benefit, and the main one through the process, is that the nutrients of the food we have pickled actually multiply, making them particularly rich in vitamins of the B group. It strengthens our immune system and respiratory system, so very good timing for this. It helps prevent certain infections, gut health, is good for hypertension, and thanks to the good bacteria, certain pesticides and chemicals that are in the vegetables disappear. And for children, it's actually very good to prevent cavities as well. So you become invincible, basically, right? So how do you pickle? You can find different recipes. This is just like cooking. You can get very creative about it. You just need very simple things. And I'm going to show you very quickly how you can do the most basic things, which would be carrots and asparagus. So I'm going to do it here with you. You need some bottled water, bottled, not tap water, because tap water has chemicals in it. You need salt, sea salt, because table salt also has chemicals, and we don't want that in our ferments. And then you just need a jar to preserve. So you can either find a fancy mason jar or just recycle another pickle jar or jam jar, as I'm going to say here. So as you see, I have already included to cheat a few vegetables in here. And all I'm going to do is just run it as much as I can. I'm just going to put as many as I can fit, because what we want to do is get rid of that oxygen in there. I can't fit them. I'm going to choose a smaller one. And then I'm going to prepare the brine that I'm going to preserve this in, right? So I have here 10 grams of salt for half a liter of water. I'm just going to add it in there and I'm going to mix it. There are some pickles, in fact, that you can drink this water as a juice, like it happens with beetroot or with ginger ale, in fact, because ginger ale is a ferment that just happens with sugar instead of salt. So it's the same thing. So now I have prepared my brine. And I'm going to add a couple more ingredients in here just for taste purposes. I'm going to put a slice of lemon, and some garlic as well. Go, and I'm gonna put it very, very tight in there. I'm gonna fill it in so that it covers absolutely everything I've got in the jar. Right, so, and I'm just gonna put a bit of a lemon there as a lid because I want this to be as tight as possible. And that's it, I have a pickle. Now I just need to wait for the fermentation, which for these takes normally between 7 to 10 days. It depends on what it is that you're pickling. So after that, after those 10 days, I'm just gonna put it in the fridge to stop the fermentation. Very important, you need to open the jar every day for the first 3 to 4 days because otherwise they may explode. That's amazing, and that happens because you're creating life in there and you're gonna see it bubbling up and you're gonna come home and you're gonna hear it fizz. That's the bacteria that you're creating in there. Very important as well to eat this. Please do not cook them because the heat is gonna kill all the bacteria that you worked so hard to create. So put them aside on the side with salads or to complement whatever it is that you're eating or as a snack, and they're very nutritious, they're very good for you. Another bonus track that I'm gonna give you is that you can pickle your own cleaning product. So whenever you're creating you're using lemon for your dishes, don't throw away the skins. Pickle them in white vinegar, leave them for 2 weeks, and you're gonna have the best cleaning product you have. You can add there any herbs or any essential oils for aroma purposes, and that's it. That was my amazing introduction to pickles, guys. Let me know if you have any questions later on. Thank you.
So we're all just gonna leave now and go pickle things, right? Like no one was planning to stay for the rest of the day? No? Okay, fine. We'll stay. We have more interesting things to learn about, but that was incredible, Emma, and I can't wait for you to have a pickle specific cooking show. I will watch it. Our next performer is no stranger to a few moments of fame. In fact, he is a former Name That Tune in One Note college champion, and he attended the red carpet premiere of The Hobbit as a guest of the movie's executive producer. But apparently he didn't realize his friend was the executive producer at the time, which seems like a story for a different day because unfortunately that's not what he's going to spend the next 5 minutes talking about. Instead, I'm excited to welcome Scott Littman to the stage to talk about the world's favorite buzzword, artificial intelligence. Scott, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. It is hard to follow Emma. That was tremendous. But I'm going to jump in on artificial intelligence. And the real theme I've got is, what are the expectations we should have of AI? Now, as an entrepreneur, I've spent the last 20 years evangelizing new and emerging technology, and I've had the good fortune to work with nearly 25% of the Fortune 500 in driving adoption of this new tech. And over the last 5 years, I've been on the front lines of AI. And from our earliest demos of our first proof of concepts and pilots until today, there are some reactions we get when we show people AI. Now, the first reaction we get is, that's amazing. I mean, we're showing people something they've never seen before, how an AI using natural language processing and understanding can recognize the intent of a question, how you can just talk to an AI and find great results from all these different sources and file types, and it's kind of cool. But there's another reaction we get, and we've had it from day one, and people can ask us, can the technology go to the next step? Can it tell me what to do? Can it tell me what actions to take, what the strategy should be? And what they really are asking us, and maybe not entirely consciously, is, can the AI do my job for me? And so this brings us to, what should we really expect of the technology? What do we want? And as an example, if I'm working on the next marketing plan, the next research report, the next proposal or study, and I need to spend hours doing research, and I'm accessing various tools and subscriptions, and I'm trying to find stuff in our company files, I am limited by my own personal knowledge of the data, my proficiency with the tools, my own limitations for just how much information I can read, review, and remember in the available time. And so should there be technology that helps me with this kind of data gathering? Is there a way to take the time-consuming drudgery out of this work? Is this an area where technology or automation, and ultimately AI, could turn hours into minutes? But what about after that? Because the after I have the data is, what conclusions do I need to draw? What inferences should I make? What is the big theme? What is the story? What's the winning pitch? And do I want an AI that can do that for me? Because if so, what's left for me? You know, why am I needed? And so my point of view is that the AI should ultimately be your companion, capable of assisting and enabling the individual to be at their best. A companion that enables them to tackle more in less time. But it is a symbiotic relationship between the individual and these emerging AIs that is focused on personal enablement. And at the end of the day, what we really want is technology and automation to take the heavy lifting away, to take away the minutia, the tedium. We want to see the technology that can elevate the data and information so we have the best assets available for us when we need them. But we need human intellect, understanding, intuition, not to mention ethics, morality, and empathy to drive strategy and decision-making. And I can't foresee a future, certainly on any near-term horizon, where the technology is capable of doing that or should even try.
Thank you, Scott.
Cool, thank you.
Next time we will make you talk about this whole red carpet executive producer situation, but that was a wonderful introduction into artificial intelligence in 5 minutes, which I know is hard because there's really a lot to unpack there. We're gonna switch gears again a little bit. Our next guest, her day job is doing product marketing at Vox Pop Me. But what you may not know about Betsy Nelson is that she is also a rock climbing instructor. Usually applicable for a different kind of summit, pun very much intended and very much a stretch. Here are some hot tips for and not tying tricks that could save your life. You can thank us later. Betsy, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to do this knot right here. It has already saved my life on multiple occasions, but it can also save your life if you have to, I don't know, stop yourself from falling somewhere or put some food up to get away from bears. We've all been there, right? So what you can do is actually follow along with me with a headphone cord or charging cord, but I'm going to go through it twice. And the first thing I need to say is I'm sorry to anybody's name that is Bob, because we're going to murder you with this knot. I teach this to kids so that they remember, and I promise you will remember it after I teach it to you too. So we have our line and we're gonna make Bob. This is Bob. Bob is a better rock climber than me, and I am extremely jealous. And it's time that Bob goes away. We need to get rid of the competition. So with this line, we're going to strangle Bob and poke him in the eye. Again, really sorry if anybody is named Bob here. It's not personal, it's professional. And there you see the figure 8 knot. Do you guys see that 8 there? The cool thing about this knot is that it's not great without some follow-up. Just like in our lives, if we don't follow up on things, we're just gonna follow through. So we need to take our little, we'll call it Bob's hand, and we'll follow through our knot and trace the line that we've just made all the way through and up to the top. And now any knot is great, but when you learn how to tie knots, the more important thing is that you know that they're gonna stay so that you're not gonna tie the knot and then, I don't know, plummet. So you have to get a test to test your knot and make sure that you and whoever you're climbing with is safe. For that, we count by 2s. Again, I usually teach this to children, so bear with me. So we're gonna count to 10 by 2s. This is the point where I usually ask, kids, can you count to 10? And they say yes. But we're going to count to 10 by twos. So you're going to see here, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 10 at the end. Now this knot is super secure because when you pull on it, it actually gets tighter and faster when you have more weight on it. So you can fall off a cliff and it'll get tight. You can rock climb and do crazy stuff and it'll just get tighter. So this is great, except for when you have to take the knot out and maybe save your food for the next day after you've put it up to get away from a bear. So you take the two sides of your knot and push them together. Do you guys see the, trying to get this very close, and it'll come undone automatically. Do I have time to do it one more time? Awesome. So one more time, we're killing Bob together. You guys are all complicit in the murder. We're taking Bob, we're strangling him and poking him in the eye. If you guys get this pretzel, you just flip the pretzel over. And that's your figure 8. And you can follow that through, and I swear it will save you from a lot of problems in life, but also it is a great thing just to know if you ever have to hoist anything up. And it's one of my favorite knots. So that's it. Thank you guys for letting me teach you something I usually teach to 10-year-olds.
Thank you, Betsy. That was great. I definitely had no idea how to do any of that, and probably won't be able to redo it, but it seems very practical. I also am hoping that nobody is tuning in just to the audio of this and only listen to like bits and pieces of that, because out of context, I feel like we could have some issues on our hands, but hopefully everyone enjoyed following along. I was watching some of you doing it in your little video things. It's always fun to come away with a new skill. All right, next up, if you've been with us all morning, you actually already know our next speaker. Straight from his spectacular performance as facilitator-in-chief at the studio session on Scrappy Research Tactics, Jonathan Williams will be taking the stage for one night and one night only, or afternoon if you're here, to talk about angel investing. Don't worry, if you want to learn more than this 5 minutes allows, you can always directly chat with him back in Cadence. Jonathan, take it away.
Thank you, and hello everybody. Looking forward to chatting to you about this. I'm going to talk about angel investing, which is something that I've always been a little bit interested in. I've been in the entrepreneurial space for quite a long time doing startups. Very excited at the opportunity of perhaps supporting other startups, enjoying the journey and perhaps seeing some success along the way. And what I wanted to do is share with you just kind of 5 key learnings I've had from the angel investment journey from what I've done so far. And hopefully that's interesting. Now, what I'm also going to do is prove a theory that I'm very, very bad at drawing, or maybe disprove that theory. And I want a bit of participation. So I have been doing some little drawings of stick people. This isn't something you need to guess yet, but the stick people are going to be showing you scenes from movies, and I'd like you to guess the movies in the chat. Okay, this isn't the movie yet, so you can't do it yet, but I just want you to know what to expect instead of stick people. And there's a movie scene for each point I want to make about angel investing. So this is my first movie. Can anybody spot what movie this is from? You've got 2 stick people. I'm starting to get some replies there. Star Wars, Gladiator. It is actually Star Wars. That's my go at Darth Vader, and that's Obi-Wan Kenobi in a cave. I'm not very good. But the key point about this scene is the one where Darth Vader strikes down Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi went into that fight expecting to lose. And I think that's a really good learning for angel investing. Only go in expecting to lose, that you're not going to get into a winning company, because most companies fail, most startups fail, unfortunately. That's the nature of the risk. When they're successful, it's really exciting. So only going in, knowing you can lose what you put in, and the excitement for the journey, because you can't rely on things going right for you. Things can, but you can't rely on it. So go in expecting to lose. Second movie, right? We have this one. Can anybody work out which movie this is? It is The Matrix, and I got the speed there as well, which is another Keanu Reeves one, isn't it? But this is The Matrix. So that's the dodging bullets scene, and that's actually a phrase that one of my colleagues in angel investing actually used to say what angel investing is. It's dodging bullets. And it goes back to this point that a lot of startups fail, but particularly the ones that are looking for money and support, not always, but often are the ones that perhaps aren't necessarily as likely to succeed. And that's just the nature of quite often the ones that are best set to succeed already have investors lined up from previous experiences and so forth. There are still really good companies out there looking for money, of course, but there's also ones that are destined probably not to succeed. So whenever you see a pitch, it's like dodging bullets. So remember you're dodging bullets. This is the third movie. This one might be a bit harder. Can anybody work out what movie that is? It isn't Twister, but I like the guess. It is Forrest Gump, Run Forrest. So I even got the little beard there in the cap, if anybody can sort of see that. But that is Forrest Gump. And this is basically to say, follow the people, not the idea. So a great idea, it's very hard to spot a great idea, but also it's very easy for people who don't know what they're doing to mess up a great idea or to make a bad idea sound good. But people with great track records and experience in what they're doing, even if they start off with a not great idea, are more likely over time to evolve it into a great idea. So if you know and can back and believe in the people, then you're much more likely to succeed. So follow the people is the next one. I've given a bit of clue on this one, but if anybody has daughters that they watch movies with, it might make sense for this one. But I couldn't bring myself to not give you a bit of a clue. Anybody else with any thoughts? Bring it on. Yes, it is High School Musical. It's a particular sign from High School Musical. I would say that I started watching with my daughter, but I really like the movies. I think I love musicals anyway, any kind of musicals. So yes, this is people dancing to a particular song in that show. And that song is Stick to the Status Quo, or Status Quo, I think, isn't it? In the States, I'm not sure. Stick to the status quo, stick to the status quo. And it's a song in which they encourage people just to stick with what they know. And in life, that's not necessarily the right advice. And I think that's the key learning from High School Musical. But in angel investing, it is. It's very hard to spot which is a commercially good idea if you don't know anything about it. If somebody comes to you from the medical world saying they've got a really amazing medical piece of technology, if you're not from that space or don't have the means to properly research it, how are you supposed to know? It can sound amazing, but if you're going into a space that you already know, you know, in the worlds of insight or insight and technology or some other space that you know, then it can be much easier to know if you've got a good idea or not. And this is the last movie. I thought this might be the hardest one. Can anybody think what this is? I'll start to describe what's on there. Yeah, Wild is absolutely right. Wild is the movie about a woman who hiked the Pacific Crest Trail, I think the PCT, well, after going through a difficult stage in her life. Yes, and I was trying to remember the reason why I chose that one. It's because it's, I don't know if she did enjoy that journey, but she learned a lot, but it's about the journey, not necessarily the destination. So if you manage to get into a business that sells and you make some money, that's fantastic, but that moment then goes. But it's the journey of seeing that company grow and evolve and develop, and the experience of sort of being with the people as they're sort of realizing their dreams as a company, that I think is the really extraordinary cool thing about angel investing. So just a bit of a recap here. Expect to lose, and that's not such a bad thing. Realize that you're dodging bullets and dodge them. Follow the people, not the ideas. Stick to what you know, and enjoy the journey. And if you do all those things, I think you get a lot out of angel investing. And that is what I wanted to share with you all. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow. I feel like A, I need to step up my drawing game, and B, maybe we should have had you do the live visual drawing that we're having throughout here, because we have these awesome people from Ink Factory, and I don't know if they're hiring right now, but those were some really solid creative drawings. And I love drawing so many parallels from pop culture and things that, you know, we know into an area of expertise that clearly you have, but is honestly, I mean, not something that I know anything about. I can't say that my knowledge of High School Musical is that good. either, to be perfectly honest with you, but now I feel like I should take tonight, watch it, study up, come back tomorrow, see the summit through a High School Musical lens. Anyways, thank you so much to our open mic lineup of speakers. I was gonna open the floor up and ask if anyone else had 5 minutes of something they wanted to share, but I know that that can be, you know, really a little bit nerve-wracking. So no pressure, but you know, if someone did want to take the mic, you can. Otherwise, Karen Kraft does. Okay, go for it. Unless I'm reading that wrong in the chat.
I was waiting for it to unmute.
You're unmuted.
Okay, so can you see me? There I am. Okay, so I'm going to share 5 minutes of some of the best business lessons I learned while working on a cruise ship in Hawaii, which was this ship, the SS Independence, which no longer is in service. So I spent 2 years of my career. I walked away from market research and went and worked on a cruise ship, and it was probably some of the most valuable business lessons I learned. The first was when it was customer service. My job was purser, which is front desk at a hotel, and nothing is worse. And I learned that there's nothing worse than someone who is jet lagged, that has flown all the way the same day from the East Coast. They show up, they're on their dream of a lifetime cruise in Hawaii, and they're not happy with their cabin. And there's nothing you can do to change it because the ship is booked. So I learned that you have to ask good questions to really understand what they're upset about and figure out an alternative way of solving the problem without having to physically move them. This has been incredibly valuable when working with stakeholders that are asking for something that is impossible, but you can still figure out at the end of the day, what are they really trying to achieve and how can you solve it? Secondly, learn how to stay calm under pressure. Again, no stakeholder in any corporation, no matter how important they are as mad as that little old lady from Boston who's jet lagged and totally unreasonable, and you just need her to go to her cabin and go to sleep because in the morning she'll see a whole new day and she'll wake up, realize she's in Hawaii. So again, staying calm. I can deal with people that are incredibly angry because I just put myself and remember back to those horrible experiences. Secondly, I learned to be kind to your coworkers. When you work on a cruise ship, you're living with the people that you work with every day. There's no escape. We worked 12 weeks on, had 6 weeks off, and you never knew who was potentially going to be from your department was going to be your next roommate. So creating good relationships with people that even if you didn't really like them personally, you never knew. You might have to spend up to 12 weeks with them in a very, very small cabin. And that really helped me get to know my coworkers on a personal level before I was put in those situations. So even though there were people I knew I didn't like working with, I would rather not have a shift with, I could still get along with them, and we could make life better. And it's actually made me a better coworker in my business life because I always try to understand what else is going on in people's lives that I can't see, so that I can understand why they might be having a bad day. Because on a cruise ship, you can't have a bad day, and you have to be able to face the music and have a smile on your face, because no one ever has a bad day in Hawaii. Although we all have a bad day at work every once in a while, but you don't have that luxury when you're on a cruise. And then the final lesson I learned was really valuable as an insights professional, especially working when I meet consumers in face-to-face in their homes. And it's about having a poker face. As front desk of the hotel department, I would have to deal with customers' questions. And it was incredible the number of incredibly stupid questions we would receive every single week. Just a sampling. And remember, this is Hawaii. It was 7 days around the Hawaiian Islands. It was a completely domestic cruise. So the first question we got a lot of is, can you give me change in local currency? People would bring their traveler's checks and want change. And I'd ask, how would you like that? They'd say, well, can you do it in small bills? So I'd bring out my 1s, 5s, and they'd be like, oh, just give me 20s. But you couldn't say, hey, this is the United States. You had to let them come to that realization on their own and not make them feel embarrassed in a situation that is incredibly embarrassing when they realize how dumb the question is. Another dumb question we got all the time was, do the locals speak English? Again, this is a US state. Everybody speaks English. Very few Hawaiians actually can speak Hawaiian fluently. It's a dying language. But again, you'd have to be calm. You'd have to just answer their question calmly and not make them feel like an idiot. And then finally, probably one of my favorite questions that actually solved itself was people would come and ask, can I buy Hawaiian shirts? Can I buy Hawaiian stamps for my postcards? And you just want to turn them to say, do you have Idaho stamps that you can put on your mail? No, we're all served by the US Postal Service. Luckily, during my time on the ship, the US Postal Service came out with a tropical flower line of stamps, and they were full price stamps, much more than a postcard. But we made sure and carried tons of them at the front desk so that we could sell people those, and they'd be so excited with their tropical stamps that they probably could have bought back at home in Kansas or wherever they were from. So again, what did I learn? I learned how to deal with people and understand what is their real problem when I can't solve exactly what they're asking for. To be kind to my coworkers, because you never know what they're going to deal with, and you never know what situations you're going to be put in with them and how closely you may have to work with them in the future. And finally, have a poker face when you're dealing with consumers, because you don't want them to feel embarrassed when they say something that you know is not true, and you can't let on that you know what they know is what they're saying is ridiculous. So that's my 5 minutes. Hope you enjoyed it.
That was incredible. Love that it was unexpected and I had no idea what was going to happen. And I feel like those are all such key learnings that we can all apply to pretty much all walks of our life, honestly. Always keep floral stamps in your back pocket when someone asks for it, right? That was the key takeaway, maybe. Thank you so much to all of our open mic presenters. That was really riveting, and actually I think everything was practical. Pickling, knots, angel investing, AI, we still have jobs, how to interact with people that you work with. Really incredible. Thanks everyone for coming along for this ride, and for letting us try something a little bit new.